I'm the Talk to Hear You Partner Outreach Lead. Our session today is going to be focused on maximizing social media. We'll be recording this meeting, and if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen or type them in the chat. Now, to get things started, I'll pass it over to Nell Nadal from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration.
So, welcome everybody. We're very glad you've joined us for today's webinar. My name is Nell Nadal. I'm a public health analyst at SAMHSA Center for Substance Abuse Prevention. And so the social media content you're going to learn about today, hopefully will help support your work in terms of sharing the messaging, materials, and products that are available from the Talk to Hear You campaign. And we welcome you to participate as much as you're willing to, as far as sharing some of your lessons learned and whatnot when we go to the breakout, because without you all doing what you're doing out there, you are what makes this campaign run. You are the heart of the campaign. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Nell. We held a community engagement meeting back in September. And during that meeting, we provided a general overview of social media while learning how some of our community partners use it in their prevention efforts. Now, today, we're going to take a deeper dive into some practical social media strategies that can help elevate and improve your online presence and strengthen your community prevention efforts. Today's agenda will include everything from understanding the metrics that each social media platform uses to increasing audience engagement and much more. We'll also have 2 polling questions and 1 breakout session. And we expect to finish today's meeting by 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Keisha Brewer.
Thank you, Scott, and good afternoon, everyone. So before we jump into understanding social media metrics, it's important to note some of the key terms, since we will be using these terms frequently throughout the presentation. So to start on the terms, there's impressions, the total number of times a piece of content is displayed, regardless of whether it was clicked or engaged with. Reach, the total number of unique users who have seen a particular piece of content. Engagement rate, the level of user interaction with a specific piece of content, which is calculated as the sum of the likes, comments, shares, etc., and then divided by the total reach or impressions. And then clicks, which we all know is the number of times users click on a link in a post or an advertisement. And then for some additional terms, these would include conversion rate, so the percentage of users who completed a desired action after clicking on the link. Follower growth, so the rate at which the number of followers for a social media account increases over a period of time. Mentions, the number of times your profile is mentioned in a social media post, comments, or discussions. For X/Twitter, this would be considered retweets. Many of you have heard of things like that. And then shares, when a user distributes your content on their page. Now, when reviewing your social media metrics, you are likely looking to measure the results for any of these 4 buckets: conversion, engagement, awareness, and reach. So conversion is how many people are taking action on a specific item. So typically, how many people have clicked on a link that you're sharing or promoting, and this is normally measured through the clicks, as we've talked about. Engagement, meaning how many people are interacting with your post, which is measured through metrics such as likes, comments, shares, retweets, as we talked about, views and mentions, and then awareness. So basically, how far and wide your posts are being seen. And this is typically measured through impressions and reach, but you'll also notice that mentions, views, and shares are on this list as well. Because if someone mentions you on a social media platform or views your video or shares your post, this is not just a level of engagement, because it is, but it's also an effort that opens your profile and your post to their audience, hence giving you more awareness. And then there's reach, which can be measured by the number of people who follow you, so your follower count, and the follower count of a page where your post may have been shared to. Now, while metrics are great to tell the story about how your social media platforms are performing, they don't have as much value without SMART goals attached to them. Many of you are probably familiar, but SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and have a time frame attached to them. So here I just provided an example of a SMART goal that you could potentially use for social media, but of course, you'll develop even more SMART goals as you dive into your social media efforts. So for this example, a specific goal would be increase engagement by encouraging more likes, comments, and shares, right? Many of us want to increase engagement on our social platforms. To make this measurable, we would say something like, we want to achieve a 25% increase in overall engagement on the post. To make sure that it's achievable, we'll say that we'll implement an interactive content and responding promptly to comments. And then we know that that can contribute to increased engagement. To make it relevant, we'll say that higher engagement can lead to improved van visibility and loyalty. That's what we're looking for, right? For the visibility for our organizations and making sure that they remain loyalty to the community. And then time bound. So making sure that these are all attached to a time frame. So saying that you could achieve this goal within 3 months is a great time frame for a goal such as this. And I just encourage you to develop your own SMART goals for your social media efforts. All right, now it's time for a poll. So we want to ask, do you know how to find the analytics or metrics for the social media platforms that you use? Once this poll pops up, you can answer A, yes, B, no, or C, I know how to find analytics for some of the platforms, but not all of them. And we'll give you a second. We see them trickling in. It's looking about even so far. All right, give you a few more seconds. We have about 90 of the 102 answering. Awesome. Okay, so 36% of you said yes, 32% said no, and then 32% said some platforms, but not all. Okay, so it's a bit even here. So that's awesome. So for the 36% that said yes, that's awesome. When we go into our breakout sessions, if there's anyone that has questions on that, maybe you can help answer them. And for those who have said no, we will move into the next slides to kind of show you where some of the metrics are on some platforms. All right, so each social media platform provides its own set of metrics to help you measure how your content and engagement is performing. So for Instagram, this is called Profile Insights. For Facebook, this is called Page Insights. And for X/Twitter, and the reason why we've been saying /Twitter, if you don't know, is because Twitter is what X used to be called. That is, Twitter's new name is X. So for X/Twitter, it is called Profile Analytics. And in each of these columns, I'll give you a second to just look at them, but you will see what you can monitor for each of those platforms. And these are things that we've talked about. So like the impressions, the reach, the follower growth, the views, the clicks. So all of them in which can be measured directly inside of these platforms. And then on this slide, it shows you where the insights and analytics for Instagram, Facebook, and X/Twitter can be found. So Instagram Insights, it shows you there, and we will be sending this presentation to you all afterwards. So don't feel as though you have to grasp the information all at once right here, or that you have to pull out your phones and take a picture. We will be sending this to you. And that way you can go to the Instagram, Facebook, and the X platforms to actually see where those insights are, those analytics are in the app. But these are just showing you just a little bit of a guidance of how to get there. All right. So, yeah.
I just want to say, and in terms of, those are free within those platforms, correct? Free analytics that you can get.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. So, there are a lot of tools that you can use to pull your analytics, but some of them do cost. This is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter's way of giving you free insights and analytics directly inside of the platform that you can utilize at no charge. Thank you for that, Ryan. All right, so now that we've covered a bit of the social media metrics, I want to highlight some tools that can help you develop engaging and high quality content for your audience, which in turn can support making sure that your social media is high performing, right? So my absolute favorite is Canva. They have a free option and a paid option, but both options provide a little more support for you for graphics. So in both versions, they give you great graphic templates for all social media platforms, whether you're talking about Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter that we have shared, but also for things like TikTok and YouTube. They have all of the platforms there, and you can develop templates, or they have ready-made templates that you can use for those platforms. Some of them are plug and play, meaning you can replace the words with yours, you can replace the images with yours, and so on, or you can get as creative as you would like, including animations, transitions, etc., and kind of making their templates your own. But in its simplest form, you already have graphics, pictures, icons, you name it, ready in this Canva app. And it's a one-stop shop for really simple, cost-effective, or free visual content. So that's my personal favorite. If you're looking for some high-resolution images, I also have used Unsplash. Unsplash just allows you to type in the type of content you're looking for. So if you are looking for youth engaging outside, for example, if you were typing that into Unsplash, it would give you a variety of images that you can download for free to help you tell that story on social media a little better for whatever you're looking for. So I use that a lot, and I think it's great. And then Giphy. So Giphy is a little more complex, but it's great for engagement. It allows you to upload and share GIFs. So GIFs are motion graphics and icons that can be used to drive more engagement and visibility to your social media platform. GIFs are often used to, I would say, add humor, emphasis, or context to online conversation. The Giphy platform allows for you to share GIFs with others and discover GIFs created by others. And to create a GIF, you would typically use a separate tool like Canva. Canva also allows you to use GIFs, and you can generate those GIFs with the images, videos, and other sources that Canva gives you. But once you've created it, download it to your computer, you can use this Giphy platform to upload it, and then people will learn more about your brand elements, and they can use them to share it on their social platforms, giving you a little more visibility for your organization. And again, we will provide you a copy of this presentation so that you can click the links and explore these platforms, and that will help you get a little more familiar. But now I will pass the torch to my colleague, Kaylee, who will go over some content strategies that you can use for some of these social media platforms.
Thanks, Keisha. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, recently rebranded as X, like Keisha said, are the 4 most popular platforms that our Talk They Hear You partners have. As you can see, each platform has different audiences and different tips that you could use when you're trying to plan your content effectively. For Facebook, you'll mainly reach those between 25 and 34 years of age with a slightly higher ratio of men to women. It's best to limit or exclude external links, as the Facebook algorithm tends to prefer posts that keep the reader inside the platform and prioritize video content over photos or plain text posts. On LinkedIn, most users are between 30 and 39 years old, with again a slightly higher ratio of men to women. It's best to curate those posts to those audiences and post lots of videos, photos, and fun graphics. Also keep in mind that LinkedIn is for professionals, so it's also good to write some of those posts in that tone. Instagram users are typically between 18 and 24 years of age, with a similar split between men and women. On Instagram, it's best to post consistently and frequently and use relevant hashtags in your captions. The age range for X is pretty similar to Instagram, but it has a much larger ratio of men to women. On X, you should embed any videos that you're using unless that video is longer than 2 minutes and 20 seconds, in which case you could use a YouTube link. While these are the most common platforms that our partners have and the platforms that SAMHSA primarily uses, we recognize that you may have other platforms like TikTok or YouTube. Both of those are really good for videos, but TikTok is more short form videos, and YouTube is where you want to use any longer videos where you want to go more in depth with your content. TikToks are really good for short snippets or where you want to stay trendy with short and sweet videos. And like I said, that YouTube is where you want to explore those longer form videos. Those are also really easy to share on your other platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. And right now we'll move into our second poll of the day. So we want to know what strategies you're currently using to engage your community on social media. Are you using polls or surveys in your posts or on your stories? Maybe you're hosting giveaways or challenges. Live videos are another really fun way to engage your audience. And there's also the tried and true method of liking others' content, resharing things that are relevant to your organization and its prevention efforts, and responding to comments that people leave on your posts. And of course, if you're doing something else that we haven't listed here, please feel free to share in the comments. We'll take a minute to answer this poll and then I'll share the results with everybody. Okay, we got about 30, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading that wrong. Got about 80 out of the 103 participated so far. Great. Give you guys just a couple more seconds. Okay, great. And it looks like the majority of you guys are doing the standard where you're liking, resharing, and responding to comments, but we still have a lot of people who are doing these other things as well, and that's awesome. So I'm going to pass it on to Jada, who's going to talk a little bit more about how you can increase your engagement.
Okay, continuing off of what Kaylee just shared, knowing your target audience for each platform can help you create content that increases engagement. Social media engagement is the number of actions that show how much your audience interacts with the content you post. This engagement is measured in likes, comments, page clicks, and shares, but it varies by platform. Engagement metrics can be found within the individual apps, or you can use a third-party site like Hootsuite, Sprout Social, and more. Collecting and analyzing metrics to see what types of posts your audience are interacting with the most, it allows you to create more relevant and engaging content. Each social media platform has its own culture and trends, so make sure you're tailoring your content to match each platform. For example, Instagram posts include more short form videos called Reels, images with few words attached, as well as a swipe through carousel feature. Instagram stories contain interactive stickers, polls, links, and more, while X, also known as Twitter, allows you to add videos, hashtags, GIFs, and polls. Create engaging posts while using the features of each platform, and always ask your audience to complete a call to action or task. This can be anything from asking them to leave a comment or a like, to having them click a link or share the post. Another great engagement strategy you can use is partnering with influencers. You'll of course want to screen all the influencers you look into, and you're looking to engage in your prevention efforts. And also these partnerships will allow you to reach a larger audience. All right, I'm passing it over to Keisha.
Awesome. And I'm loving the chat, just as a sidebar, where many of you already have some social media suggestions, like where to find additional graphics, where to find additional pictures. So I love that. Feel free to continue sharing in the chat if you have any support that you can offer others. I love that. And I think I responded to a few, so thank you there. Okay, so during our September community engagement meeting, quite a few people expressed that they've been using the same social media platforms and would like to expand to some other ones, but you may be a little hesitant to do so because you don't know where to start. I know that was some of the feedback we also received. So here are some steps you can take to successfully expand to other platforms. 1, set clear goals, right? So define your objectives for joining the new platform, whether it's to increase awareness for your organization and its prevention initiatives, or to build a deeper online community to gain audience feedback. Whatever that is, please set those clear goals so that it can provide you a little more direction. Optimize your profile. So create a compelling and complete profile with a clear profile picture, concise bio, relevant links, and then use keywords that reflect your organization and your organization's content. Then you want to identify, follow, and engage with your target audience. So identifying influencers or organizations that have similar missions and initiatives will certainly be helpful because you can follow and engage with their content, respond to their comments, and participate in their discussions, which will make your platform, your social media platform, visible to them. In a lot of different cases, they may even follow you back and engage with you back, right? So that's kind of how you can start building an audience on this new platform. Then, of course, we talked about creating high quality shareable content. In the chat, you've been mentioning some platforms you use for some high quality content. We mentioned some platforms you can use. So definitely make sure that you're consistently trying to meet a good quality of content. and then promote cross-platform and then create consistent branding. So what we mean by this is leveraging your existing audience on the other platforms by promoting your new platform on your other platforms. I'm going to say that again just to make sure I'm making sense. So if you're expanding to Instagram and you already have a Twitter, you can mention on your Twitter that you have an Instagram now if they want to engage with you there, right? So promoting your new platform on your old platform, you can share teasers, exclusive content, or announcements to just encourage followers to join you on the new platform. It's also important to maintain consistency across these platforms by using similar branding elements such as the logos, the colors, and the themes, because this will help your audience transfer over but recognize your organization and prevention efforts on these other platforms. And then finally, of course, be patient, consistent, and monitor those analytics we were talking about. So use those analytic tools or inside those apps to look at the analytics provided by the platform and monitor how your content is performing. You want to analyze those metrics to see what's working and then adjust your strategy accordingly. So I know that was a mouthful, but of course, we'll be sending this, as I said again, but these are just some ways you can expand to the other platforms.
And Keisha, I did want to just add one little quick point to that. I
Yeah.
think it's important for people to remember too, when you are looking to transition to other platforms, don't feel like you have to start from scratch. I mean, take a look at some of the other organizations that you know of who are doing similar work, who might already be established on these platforms, and just see what kind of messaging they're sending out, see what kind of activities they're presenting to their audiences, see how they're engaging different audiences within their communities. There's a lot to be learned from what other folks are doing. And then you can, map some of those ideas, map some of those strategies to where you're looking to take your messaging and your organization's initiatives. So I just wanted to put that.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Ryan. That is absolutely true and very effective. Awesome. All right. And then during the September community engagement meeting, many of you also shared that social media can feel like a completely separate job. And hopefully this training didn't confirm that. But here are some social media management tools that will allow you to schedule content and analyze your metrics in one place. So we know you can analyze your metrics in the platform specifically, but if you are interested in some social media management tools for scheduling, you can do both in one area on these platforms. And this just makes social media a lot more manageable. And many of these systems have free trials too. So you can test them out before purchasing. Most of them are also cost effective, but before purchasing, you can just go through the free trial to see if it is worth the investment, if it really does help you out. And we'll make sure to give you the presentation so you can click on those links and explore. And now I'll pass this to Scott to introduce our breakout session for today.
Great, thank you, Keisha.
Sure.
So now we'll go into today's breakout session to see what was helpful about today's training and what social media questions or concerns you may still have. Now, please remember, the more feedback and the more honest that feedback is, the better. Breakout rooms will be led by a moderator from the Talk They Hear You campaign team. We'll have about 10 minutes or so to discuss and hear your feedback before we return to the full group to learn about what everyone else has discussed. So Dave is going to create those breakout rooms, and we'll see everybody in the room in here in just a moment. Coming back from the breakout sessions, we'll wait a few more seconds just to make sure everyone is back. And then we'll kind of kick things off with a little recap from each breakout session about some of the things that you might have chatted about.
All rooms are closed.
All rooms are closed. Great. Well, hopefully everybody enjoyed your breakout session and you got to ask some questions and learn a little bit more. And I'll start things off, kind of a little recap about what my breakout group talked about. They had some really great questions. We kind of started things off talking about Canva, and people just that use Canva just kind of confirmed that, yes, it's a great tool. It's easy to use, and that they do provide really great templates, that you can use, start inputting photos and different content, and then you can start using them on whatever social media platforms your organization has. We had a question about Facebook. Someone said that they have pretty good content that they're putting out on their organization's Facebook, but so far it's mostly just getting views. So people are viewing their content, and they just wanted to know a little bit about how can they kind of take those views and expand them to have more interaction with their audience. And so we talked a little bit about reaching out to them, seeing who's viewing your content, perhaps reaching out to them via comments or even messages to ask, what about our content that you like? And then somebody else mentioned that if you have a committee, perhaps asking them to share your content onto their own profiles, their own social media platforms. That way you can start to get some engagement with people commenting on things, retweeting, reposting, or doing likes. And all that activity will increase your engagement and get people a little bit more interested in some of the things that you're talking about. So we had a great discussion, and I think I'm going to turn it over now to Nadia to see what her breakout session talked about. So Nadia.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, we also had a great session. I think one of the questions we got around Facebook is something that we could definitely discuss. So Susan brought up how, you have to pay to boost your posts on Facebook. So she was just wondering, is that worth it? And then also, and we had other partners chime in and say that it is worth it and why. And one of those points was that you can pinpoint to a geographic location and just do it like across 5 days. And that in the overall scheme of things, it's not too pricey. And also there was a concern of adding your company's credit card or your coalition's credit card. And one of the partners mentioned using a prepaid card to put on there, and also mentioned that Facebook has secure payment. So yeah, I think that was really interesting.
And Scott, I would just add, I was in Nadia's room too as well. And I think the other two things that we really touched on were, some of the challenges of engaging youth in kind of the messaging and posting, social media posting process, so that their voice can be represented. I think it can be challenging to get engagement from youth, even though obviously their voice, their experiences, their stories are incredibly valuable on social media, and on social media platforms. So, and that also was talking about kind of peer content as well. And I think we reiterated the value of engaging as many of the people you serve, the partners you collaborate with, as many voices you can get involved in your messaging and repackaging and your messaging to be different and keep things fresh. There's a lot of value in that.
That sounds great, Ryan. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And thank you, Nadia, for talking about what your group talked about. Kaylee, how about you? Would you like to talk about your breakout session, what you discussed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a hand raised though. I don't know if we want to answer that question first.
Yeah, of course, we can do that. Carol, yes, hi.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Good.
Thank you, everyone. One of the things I just heard, and unfortunately I wasn't in that group, is there's a prepaid card. And then Nadia also said that one of the goals will be for you all to perhaps give us some more information on the purchase of Facebook. What I found is I put in my credit card, and my colleague and I have really worked hard to learn all this. And we chose $50, I think, over 7 days. And it was, an experiment. We did not want to use the town card in case there was any. And what I found was, I should get to the beginning. I'd love to find out how to get a prepaid card, because what happened was my credit card was billed like $6.35 one day and $8.10 the next day. So it looked like it was not appropriate. Whereas when I put the $50 in, I felt like it would be $50. One time I didn't understand, and now we do because we researched that it's incremental and taken out until the 50 maxes out, which flags your credit card company. So any information you have on prepaid or anything to circumvent and get us to feel more comfortable, because we do and have seen in our numbers the value of boosts and the value of paid ads.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. That is great advice. Appreciate that.
Well, it really isn't advice. It's just an experience, and love to have any of your guidance.
Well, I'll start out. Every social media platform has a way. Well, most of them have a way where you can pay to do some sort of extra engagement with them. So I think the best thing that I can say is really look at what their terms and conditions are. because your experience with Facebook, other platforms can be a little bit different with what they allow. And definitely get your leadership involved first to make sure that they understand that you want to pay to use a platform because you want to do an increased type of engagement, and that here's the terms and conditions. And then, like you said, try that experiment. Maybe do a small amount first to see how it plays out. And if you're happy with the engagement and the metrics that come back, then you can continue to use that, maybe with bigger amounts from there.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Carol, where it's like it's $6 one day, $7 another day, $8 the next day. I too have experienced that versus just the 50 coming out. So a prepaid card is helpful. If there's anyone who has used a prepaid card and has any or hasn't used a prepaid card and they saw the incrementals coming out but found a workaround, feel free to let Carol know, because I absolutely know what you mean. But to Scott's point, maybe all platforms, and I can't remember if all of the platforms were like this, but maybe to see if all of the platforms are like that when it comes out in the increments. But a prepaid card, I totally understand, would be a preference to get everything to come out. So thank you, Carol, for that question. I think there's some comments as well that people are kind of responding to you.
I thank you all so much.
For sure.
Okay, great. So Kaylee, would you like to kick things off with what you talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our breakout room, we mostly brainstormed a bunch of different ways that we could use the content based off of the meeting that we had today. Different ways that we could start some more engagements, some hashtags that we could use, ways to start, diving into videos. So that was really cool to be able to talk with everybody about that.
Great, thank you so much. Jada, would you like to talk about your breakout group?
Yes, our breakout group earned a lot of information from this meeting. We had a question about how you can increase followers on each platform. We talked about you can comment on people's posts, you can share people's posts, you can comment to other people commenting on a post, and that will lead them to want to click on your page. We also had a question about how to get a younger audience. So you want to keep up with the TikTok trends, of course. You'll want to keep up on Instagram. And if you're on Facebook, you're going to have to reach out to their parents first, usually, since that is an older demographic.
Great, Jada, thank you so much for that. And Keisha, our last breakout group, what are some of the things that your group talked about?
Absolutely. So we started off with just talking about anything that was particularly helpful. We mentioned, or they mentioned, that metrics were helpful because someone didn't even realize that the metrics were available directly on the platform. So I was excited about that. They enjoyed how we broke down each platform. So what you should be posting on Facebook, what you should be posting on Instagram versus X. So that was great. And then also talking about what to prioritize on each platform was certainly helpful to them as well. We did have a few questions. One which I thought was particularly interesting, and I love this question, and it was about if you have an organization that also has flourishing programs underneath it, should you put all of the programs under one social media platform, or should you break them down into separate social media platforms? I thought that was a great question because we've seen it done both ways, right? Where, you have one organization and they use that one social media platform to talk about all of the rest of the programs that they have. And then we've seen it where they break out a program into a separate social media platform, maybe if it has its own audience and it's flourishing on its own and it has its own brand recognition, right? So we realized after talking, it's kind of both and, right? Like if you have a great flourishing program that has its own identity and its own audience, it is also great to have a separate platform for them, but to make sure that in that general platform that some of those programs are still existing, some of the information is still existing in the general. So I thought that was a really, really great question for anyone else who was wondering. And then we also had a question around boosting posts and advertisements. And so that was great to hear that others are thinking about advertisements as well. One of the questions for us was how it seems as though Instagram and Facebook are getting a little particular about who can boost posts, right? But we talked about boost and advertising is a little bit different. So they come out with similar results, but how the action that you take is a bit different. So In this instance, boosting posts is a little different than advertising it. And so we talked about going into the Facebook Ads Manager to really try to drive the traffic in the ads way instead of just boosting the post, because they're different. I don't know if anyone realized that they were two different actions, but they are. So this particular person is now going to check out the Facebook Ads Manager and see what they can do a little differently with that. So that's it.
That sounds great, Keisha. Thanks so much. And thank you everybody who participated. It sounds like all the sessions had some really rich discussion. And if you had a question, but you weren't able to answer it, feel free to put that question into our chat room or into the Q&A. What we're going to do is we're going to capture all those questions, and we will reach out to everybody after the meeting in the days ahead to provide you whatever information that we can to help your organizations out. So thank you again so much for that. And I will be passing things back over to my colleague, Keisha, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Scott. So some people asked about speaking to leadership about social media. So for those of you who asked about how to speak to leadership, about putting more time, effort, and support into social media, and maybe even expanding to new social media platforms, here are some key elements that you probably want to include in your discussion with them. So first, similar organizations. If you can identify other similar organizations who are successfully using social media on different platforms and analyze their content types, engagement levels, and see how you can adopt some of those strategies, that's a great way to start the conversation with leadership. Hey, this similar organization is using it in this way, and we feel we could use it in a similar way to help drive some of our goals, right? Align with organization goals and present the potential return on investment. So demonstrate how expanding to the new platform aligns with your overall organization goals, whether it's increasing awareness for your organization, increasing traffic to your website, or just getting overall more feedback from your community. Show the direct connection to being on social media and those goals. I would also say to identify some risk. So address potential risk and challenges such as targeting vulnerable populations and the possibility of opening your organization up to more questions and concerns from the public. Those are risks that are naturally associated with social media. So that is something that maybe you can bring up just to throw it out there, manage expectations. I would also bring up resources. So clearly outline the resources that you'll need to make social media efforts work and be successful for you all. So any team members, any tools, even if it's some of the tools we discussed here, just let them know all the resources you may need. And then any metrics, right? So being able to measure success is going to be important. So be prepared to outline how you can plan to measure the success of your social media efforts, whether it's through the social media metrics, or it's how social media has supported your organization's goals thus far and why you want to dive a little deeper into it. Just be prepared to kind of show how you're going to measure success and how you currently are measuring success now. And then a timeline. So let's provide a realistic timeline for increasing your social media efforts back to those SMART goals, making sure you're attaching a time frame to it. Include some milestones and expected outcomes at different stages. So this is another way to manage expectations. If you are migrating over to a new social media platform, we understand it may take a little more time than an existing one to ramp up some of those metrics, ramp up some of that engagement. So just including a time frame of milestones and expected outcomes, and this will help to really help them understand the growth rate of social media efforts if they aren't aware of how this normally works. So these are just some ways that you can start the conversation about social media and expanding your efforts. And this here is a sample email that can help you start communicating with leadership about the social media needs and efforts. And then you can review this email, you can tweak this email, however you want to use it. Again, we will send this presentation to you afterwards, so you will be able to kind of copy this, make it your own. But this is just something simple and sweet that we wanted to create for you to start the conversation if you needed a little bit of support on the language. So if you all need to use that, feel free to do so. All right, and as the clock is almost getting to 3 o'clock, this is beginning to be the end of our social media training here. I hope this training was super helpful and informative and that it answered some of your social media questions and challenges. From the presentation, we discussed how to find metrics, develop SMART goals, content strategies, increase visibility engagement, and communicate the ROI, so return on investment, for social media. So I'm hoping that this was super helpful, that the breakout sessions was super helpful, that the comments, which I'm really excited you guys were giving some perspectives in the comments. I hope it all was super helpful. And to wrap up the meeting, I will turn this over to Scott.
Great. Thank you so much, Keisha. So if anyone has any questions about Talk to Hear You, or the campaign itself, please email the email address that you see on the screen. And if you haven't done so already, we encourage you to sign up for our campaign e-newsletter and to subscribe to our podcast, which we're going to add in the chat box here, links to those in just a moment. Yep, there they are. And of course, you can follow SAMHSA on the social media platforms that are listed there on the slide on the right. Please stay tuned for our session recap email, which will have information about kind of the themes and other topics that we touched on today. And that email will include this PowerPoint and a link to the meeting's recording as well. And then again, all the questions that people are asking, we see some popping up in the chat room and in the Q&A. If we didn't get a chance to answer them, we will do so in the days ahead, we promise. But thank you so much for all of that.
And if I could make one last plug, Scott, before we sign off, I just want to say that, again, we couldn't do this campaign without all the incredible work that you do in all the different communities across the country. And, not to add more to your plate by any means, but we definitely want to be able to showcase and highlight your successes and your efforts that you're doing across the country. So anytime you're willing to kind of share information about the activities that the prevention efforts that you're doing and share examples of some of the materials and products and whatnot that you might be creating and disseminating, we would greatly appreciate it. So that we can learn from Sam's perspective what everybody's doing and kind of continue to evolve the campaign accordingly, but also you can share what you're doing with other communities as well. Because I know peer learning is certainly one of the most important pieces of this as well. So, and so I apologize for the dogs barking in the background.
No, that's a great point, Ryan. In fact, one of the newsletters that we send out is our partner spotlight, where every other month we share 2 or 3 partners and what they're doing. And we've seen that a lot of our other partners love those because they get tips and advice and they think, hey, if that partner is doing something creative with Talk to Hear You, perhaps that's something that we can do as well. So yeah, thank you, Ryan, so much for sharing that.
I have a question. Thank you. So we worked with you, Scott, to make sure we were, attributing that we're members of the campaign and how we represent your work on our sites. So how can you keep track of what we do? We have you in a hashtag. That's not automatic. We've tagged you. Is there a way to tag you where then you all can see what we're doing without us giving you the content updates periodically?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carol. The hashtags are really helpful. When you do a hashtag, Talk to Hear You, that's great because what we can do is we can plug in that hashtag into Facebook, into Instagram and other platforms, and it'll show us all the different posts that are happening all throughout the world that includes that hashtag. And then, of course, we also we use Google Alerts and some other tools to see what kind of news articles are being put out there that include our partners doing things. So, and of course, I just love to get emails from our partners that say, hey, we just wrapped up a great campaign using Talk to Hear You. It had billboards or it had materials that we distributed at a school or at an event. So definitely feel free to send those emails to us. And I'll back up on the slide. That contact us, that Talk to Hear You at sceiservices.com. You can send emails there. I read them. I share them with the team. We discuss what the emails include. And it really helps us to generate resources and other tools that meet your needs and the needs of our partners that are out there. So great question, Carol.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, you saw this earlier, please take a moment to scan the QR code that you see on the screen using your smartphone. And this QR code will direct you to a feedback form where we ask a little bit more about today's training, the topics and things like that. And also, what kind of topics would you like us to cover in future community engagement meetings? And your responses will be anonymous, but they'll really help us to better serve you and to come up with new resources and tools and future community engagement feedback meetings. And I just wanted to say on behalf of SAMHSA and the entire Talk to Hear You campaign team, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your feedback. Hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of your week. And we will keep this QR code up for another minute or so that you can jump to that form. Again, hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Hey, Scott.